Ladies and gentlemen, there will come a moment in your life when someone will speak against you, harshly, unfairly, maybe even cruelly. Their words will sting, and every part of you will want to respond, to defend yourself, to prove them wrong. But before you do, pause, breathe, and ask yourself this: does their disrespect define you, or does your response? The world tells us that strength is found in loudness, that power is in the sharpness of our words, that dignity is defended by retaliation. But what if real strength is something far deeper? What if the greatest power lies not in how you react, but in your ability to stay still, stay quiet, and rise above? Silence after disrespect is not weakness, it is wisdom. It is knowing when a battle is beneath you. It is understanding that insults are like dust. They only settle where they are entertained. It is choosing peace over provocation, dignity over impulse, and wisdom over pride. Tonight, I want to take you on a journey of understanding the power of silence, the strength in self-control, and the spiritual grace found in restraint. Because when you learn to remain quiet after disrespect, you do not lose, you win. Stay with me till the end, because what you're about to hear might just change the way you see conflict forever. Let's begin. To remain silent after being disrespected is an act of tremendous strength, though the world often mistakes it for weakness. In a society where quick retaliation is seen as proof of power, where people rush to defend their pride with sharp words and loud voices, silence stands as an anomaly. It is misunderstood because it does not conform to the immediate instincts of the human heart, yet it requires far greater discipline to hold one's tongue than to let it run free. Silence in the face of insult is not the absence of a response, but the presence of restraint. It takes immense self-control to resist the urge to fire back when wounded by words. A person who is truly strong does not need to prove their strength through argument, for they understand that true power lies in mastery over their own emotions. The ability to remain composed under provocation is a sign of a mind that is ruled not by impulse, but by wisdom. The world teaches that a strong person never lets an insult go unanswered, that allowing someone to speak against you without retaliation is a sign of submission. But what does it truly mean to be strong? Is it the ability to throw words as quickly as one receives them? Or is it the ability to endure an insult without being shaken? A person who reacts in anger is a person controlled by the words of another. Their emotions are at the mercy of external forces, dictated by the insults or opinions of others. But the one who remains silent is master of himself. He does not allow another's disrespect to determine his state of mind. There is an undeniable dignity in quiet restraint. A moment of silence carries a weight that no amount of shouting can match. When one does not respond to provocation, it forces the offender to face the emptiness of their words. They expect a reaction, they crave an emotional response. But when met with silence, their insult finds no foothold, no place to land. It lingers in the air, powerless and ineffective. History is filled with those who through silence demonstrated greater strength than those who spoke in anger. The greatest leaders, the wisest thinkers, the most revered figures in faith and philosophy, they understood that words are fleeting, but dignity endures. They knew that by holding their peace, they retained something far more valuable than a momentary victory in argument: the respect of those who witness their restraint. To stay quiet after disrespect is to rise above it. It is to refuse to be dragged down to the level of those who insult. It is to understand that true strength is not in the battle of words, but in the refusal to engage in one. A person who answers every insult with words gives power to the one who insults them, allowing their peace to be disturbed, their emotions to be swayed. But the one who remains silent stands unshaken, untouched by the pettiness of others. Words are only as powerful as the reaction they provoke. A disrespectful remark, an insult, or a slanderous accusation carries weight only when it is met with resistance. The moment one chooses to remain silent, the energy behind those words begins to dissipate. Silence does not signify agreement or weakness. Rather, it disarms the speaker and leaves their words hanging in the air without a target to strike. The nature of human conflict is often built upon exchange. One person speaks, another responds, and a chain of reactions follows. This is what fuels arguments, disputes, and prolonged animosities. When the expected counterattack never arrives, the cycle is broken. Without resistance, words lose their momentum. A fire cannot burn without fuel, and in the same way an insult cannot thrive without engagement. The speaker, expecting outrage or justification, is left in a void, confronted only by the echoes of their own voice. Unanswered words place the burden back onto the one who spoke them. When a person hurls an insult, they anticipate either submission or retaliation. If their words are ignored, they are left to wrestle with their own intent. Did their words have meaning, or were they spoken merely to provoke? If the target remains unmoved, then the insult has failed in its purpose. It is a heavy realization for those who depend on the power of their words to control, manipulate, or wound others. Silence robs them of their perceived dominance. Furthermore, silence forces reflection. A hasty response in anger often leads to regret, for words spoken in the heat of emotion rarely convey truth with precision. When one remains silent, they allow time for both themselves and the offender to process the situation with clearer minds. Silence creates space for understanding, for wisdom, and for the weight of words to be felt in their truest form. A loud voice in the moment may feel satisfying, but it does not carry the same authority as silence, which lingers long after the moment has passed. There is also a profound mystery in silence. When one does not respond to provocation, the mind of the offender is left to wander. Did they choose silence out of indifference, out of confidence, out of wisdom? The lack of an answer often speaks louder than any words ever could. It unsettles those who expect an easy battle and leaves them questioning their own actions. In some cases, it even compels self-examination, making the offender realize the futility of their own words. When a person chooses silence after being disrespected, they are not conceding defeat, but instead demonstrating control over themselves and the situation. They dictate the tone of the encounter rather than allowing it to be dictated for them. A strong person does not react to every insult because they understand that not every word deserves acknowledgement. Silence allows for dignity to remain intact, for peace to be preserved, and for the weight of another's words to rest solely on the shoulders of the one who spoke them. A person's character is not defined by what is said to them, but by how they choose to respond. In moments of disrespect, the immediate impulse is to defend oneself, to meet insult with insult, to prove strength through retaliation. Yet, in doing so, one risks stepping outside the bounds of their own principles, allowing another's words to dictate their behavior. True character is not built in moments of comfort, but tested in moments of provocation. The way one handles disrespect is a direct reflection of their self-discipline, self-worth, and wisdom. Responding to disrespect often means descending to the level of the offender. Words spoken in anger are rarely measured, and in the heat of the moment a person can say things that contradict their own values. A single moment of reaction can tarnish years of composure, leaving behind words that cannot be unsaid and impressions that cannot be undone. When one retaliates, they risk becoming what they oppose. Matching hostility with hostility, exchanging dignity for momentary satisfaction. Silence, on the other hand, preserves integrity. It is not an act of submission, but an assertion of self-control. It communicates that one's character is not easily swayed by external forces, that one does not give power to insults or allow provocation to dictate behavior. To remain quiet in the face of disrespect is to prove that dignity is not dependent on validation or defense. It is an unspoken statement that one's worth does not require constant justification. The greatest figures of history, those who are remembered for their wisdom and grace, were not those who fought every verbal battle, but those who chose their moments of response with care. A person who speaks only when necessary, who does not waste words on senseless arguments, commands far greater respect than one who responds to every slight. Silence carries a weight that endless rebuttals do not. It signals confidence, assurance, and an understanding that not every battle is worth fighting. There is a discipline in knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. Those who react to every insult reveal their vulnerability to the opinions of others. They show that their emotions can be easily manipulated, their peace easily disturbed. But the one who remains still, who refuses to be provoked, demonstrates a mastery over themselves that cannot be shaken. They choose not to surrender their peace to the reckless words of another. A moment of restraint often does more for one's reputation than 1,000 well-crafted arguments. It leaves a lasting impression, one that speaks of wisdom rather than pride, patience rather than weakness. Those who know their own worth do not feel the need to prove it at every turn. They understand that dignity is not in winning arguments, but in maintaining grace under pressure. To respond with silence is to protect the sanctity of one's character, ensuring that no word spoken in anger can diminish the reputation carefully built through a lifetime of measured actions. In the heat of the moment, words feel urgent, an insult demands a response, an accusation begs for correction, and disrespect seems to require immediate retaliation. Yet the passage of time has a way of revealing what is true and what is fleeting. What seems unbearable in the present often fades into insignificance when given time to settle. Silence, when practiced with patience, allows truth to emerge on its own, without the need for immediate defense or justification. A hasty reply born out of anger or wounded pride often does more harm than good. In attempting to set the record straight, a person may say something they later regret, fueling the very fire they wish to extinguish. Arguments escalate not because of the initial insult, but because of the back-and-forth exchange that follows. Silence, on the other hand, creates a pause. It prevents the situation from spiraling and allows emotions to settle before actions are taken. When a person refuses to engage in the moment, they give themselves the advantage of perspective. Disrespect often comes from impulse. Words spoken carelessly, emotions unchecked, opinions formed without full understanding. But time exposes the weight of those words. Given enough time, people recognize their own mistakes, reconsider their judgments, and often regret the words they once spoke in haste. A person who remains silent after being disrespected allows this process to unfold naturally. Rather than demanding an apology or forcing acknowledgement, they let the truth make itself known through time and reflection. Silence also shifts the burden of proof. When one engages in a heated exchange, both parties contribute to the noise, making it difficult to discern who is in the right. But when one remains quiet, the focus remains solely on the words and actions of the other person. Without a response to deflect attention, an insult stands alone, revealing more about the one who spoke it than the one it was directed at. Over time, others begin to see the truth for themselves, without the need for explanation or justification. History is filled with examples of those who, by waiting patiently, allowed time to prove them right. Those who rush to defend themselves often appear guilty, while those who remain composed and let events unfold naturally are later vindicated. Silence allows people to see beyond the immediate conflict, to recognize patterns, and to separate momentary emotions from lasting truths. The more time passes, the clearer things become. There is wisdom in trusting time to do what words cannot. A response spoken in the heat of the moment may feel necessary, but it is rarely as powerful as the truth revealed over time. Silence is not about avoiding conflict or refusing to stand up for oneself. It is about understanding that some battles are won not through argument, but through patience. It is the quiet confidence that truth does not need immediate defense because, in the end, it always finds a way to surface. An insult, a demeaning remark, or an act of disrespect does not define the one who receives it. It defines the one who delivers it. Words and actions originate from the character of the person who speaks or acts, shaped by their own thoughts, emotions, and experiences. A person who lashes out with disrespect is not revealing a truth about their target, but exposing something about themselves. It is natural to take insults personally, to feel wounded by another's words, and to believe that their disrespect must mean something about one's own worth. But if an individual were truly at fault, the truth would stand on its own, requiring no insult to make it known. Disrespect is not the language of truth, but of insecurity, frustration, or unresolved anger. Those who are at peace with themselves have no need to degrade others. They do not seek validation through tearing others down, nor do they attempt to mask their own flaws by pointing out the weaknesses of others. When a person chooses to disrespect another, they are often projecting their own inner struggles. A heart full of resentment speaks with bitterness. A mind clouded by jealousy expresses itself through cruelty. A person dissatisfied with their own life may attempt to diminish others, to feel a fleeting sense of superiority. None of this, however, is a reflection of the person being disrespected. A calm and self-assured individual does not feel the need to engage in petty attacks. The need to insult arises from an internal void, a desperate attempt to assert control or superiority in a situation where one feels powerless. Silence in response to disrespect acknowledges this reality. It refuses to accept the burden of another's insecurities, recognizing that their words belong to them alone. Engaging with an insult gives it weight, lending credibility to something that should be dismissed as insignificant. The moment one allows another's disrespect to dictate their emotions, there is no greater defeat than allowing an unworthy insult to disturb one's peace. The ability to remain unaffected by another's words is not a sign of indifference, but of strength. It is an assertion that one's value is not dependent on external validation or the shifting opinions of others. A person who truly understands their worth does not seek confirmation of it from the world, nor do they allow the careless words of others to plant doubt in their mind. Time and observation often reveal the true nature of those who habitually disrespect others. While their words may seem sharp in the moment, their pattern of behavior eventually exposes them for what they are. Those who degrade others frequently are remembered not for their strength, but for their bitterness. They stand isolated, their words losing power as people begin to see through their intentions. The weight of their disrespect remains with them, while the one who chooses silence walks away unburdened, unshaken, and untouched by the flaws of another. Restraint in the face of disrespect is not merely an act of patience, but a reflection of something far greater: wisdom, dignity, and a deep understanding of the nature of conflict. Throughout history, the most revered figures have practiced restraint, choosing silence over retaliation, not because they lacked the ability to respond, but because they understood that true power is not found in striking back, but in rising above. There is something almost divine in the ability to remain composed when provoked. Human nature leans toward reaction, toward defending oneself with words or actions that match the energy of the insult received. Yet those who are truly wise recognize that not every battle must be fought, that words spoken in anger often lead to regret, and that dignity is preserved not by proving oneself in the moment, but by maintaining control over one's emotion. When faced with disrespect, a person who chooses silence demonstrates an awareness that justice does not always come through immediate response. The world has a way of correcting imbalances, of revealing the true nature of people through the passage of time. An insult may seem sharp, an accusation may feel unbearable, But silence allows the truth to emerge without interference. The one who lashes out in anger will often be seen for who they are, while the one who remains quiet retains their honor. There is also an element of strategy in divine restraint. A person who does not react to provocation denies the aggressor the satisfaction of control. Many insults are designed not to communicate truth, but to elicit a reaction, to manipulate emotions, to lure someone into a verbal battle where they lose their composure. When no reaction is given, the insult falls flat and the power of the offender diminishes. The strongest individuals are those who refuse to let the words of another dictate their actions. Restraint is not weakness, nor is it passivity. It is an intentional decision to remain above pettiness, to choose peace over unnecessary conflict. Some of the most influential leaders, thinkers, and figures of history were those who endured insults and opposition without lowering themselves to the level of their aggressors. They understood that silence is not an admission of defeat, but a declaration of strength. In every instance of disrespect, there is a choice: to respond with anger or to respond with wisdom. The former may offer momentary satisfaction, but the latter preserves one's character, leaving behind a legacy of self-control and grace. The true mark of greatness is not found in the ability to retaliate, but in the ability to endure without being shaken. Restraint is the mastery of self, the refusal to allow another's words to dictate one's peace. It is a quiet yet undeniable force, one that speaks volumes even in silence. Those who understand this live with an unshakable confidence, knowing that dignity is not in the response, but in the refusal to be pulled into battles that do not serve them. To remain silent after being disrespected is not an act of weakness, but a profound display of strength. It is the mark of a person who understands that true power lies not in retaliation, but in restraint. Silence robs insults of their power, leaving them to collapse under their own weight. It preserves one's dignity, allowing character to remain untarnished by momentary anger. It shifts the burden of reflection onto the offender, revealing that disrespect says more about the giver than the receiver. Time has a way of unveiling the truth, of proving the wisdom of those who refuse to be dragged into meaningless battles. Those who react to every insult become slaves to the opinions of others, while those who remain composed demonstrate unshakable self-mastery. The strongest individuals do not allow their emotions to be controlled by the careless words of others. They choose peace over provocation, wisdom over impulse, and grace over bitterness. In the end, silence is not just an absence of words, it is a statement in itself. It says, "I will not be moved by petty insults. My worth is not dictated by your words. My peace is mine to keep." And that, perhaps, is the greatest victory of all. Good luck to you in mastering the art of silence, in preserving your dignity, and in walking away from battles that do not deserve your presence. May you always stand firm in your strength, knowing that silence, when chosen wisely, speaks louder than words. Thank you.